final for the day. Our final little egg bite thingy goodie. I guess that's what you can call them. We are going to do some fudge brownies. Oh, love fudge brownies. I've been using this recipe for years, and my family never gets tired of it, and it is kind of good. Love the way the brownies come out. But how we're going to do it, we're going to start off with the stovetop, work our way to the KitchenAid, Big Red. I called him Big Boy earlier in the beginning, but it's Big Red. He's the blender, the mixer. KitchenAid is Big Red. So we'll go to Big Red for a little bit, get this stuff blended up, and then we'll go to the Instapot. So we're going to be moving around the kitchen today, and this, because I knew I would be going from place to place, I saved this one for last. And right now what I'm doing is I'm going, I guess it's called a Dutch oven kind of way. I don't know, not Dutch, double broiler kind of way. I am, let me turn you down so that way you can see, but I'm getting some water heated. I have an induction stove, so it's not going to take too long for it to get hot. But all I did is I have a bowl and some water, and this water is heating up. I don't want it boiling because I don't want it too hot. You're going to use a stick of butter, and we're going to start letting that melt. I'm going to just start cutting it to kind of help the process here. And while we're waiting for that to kind of melt, you have a cup and 1/4 of sugar, just granulated sugar, and you have 3/4 cup and 2 tablespoons. This thing's 2 tablespoons. So you have 3/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of powdered cocoa. Now, I do use an organic cocoa for my recipe, but I've used Hershey's, and they're both just as good. I can't say one is better than the other. So, you know, I either use the organic or the Hershey's, and they're both really good. So we're gonna go ahead and start stirring this up and get that going. And then while we're getting it going, I'm gonna turn that up on high for a little bit to speed the process. I thought it was, the water would be hotter by now, but so we're just gonna kind of go along this little process right here, and go ahead and pour the sugar, get that going in there, get that. Usually it doesn't take long for an induction stove to boil water, but I've had mine for a while, so it's not as quick as it used to be back in the day. So just, but you can hear it. You can hear that water boiling. Turn it down some because I don't want it too hot. And you don't have to do a double broiler like this. You can do it right in the pot, and in fact I used to do it right in the pot. I just put it and melted it, but the last few times I kept burning the cocoa, and so I just said, well, I'm gonna just go ahead and start doing it this way, because this way I know it's safe. You know, once you burn the cocoa, you got to start over, and this cocoa is not, you know, it's not cheap. And another thing you want to do is kind of have your butter at room temperature before you start, or microwave it, which I did neither because I'm just focusing on video. So I was trying to get everything ready for the video and just didn't even take into account. But it is starting to get there. So we're putting that together right here, starting to get together. And let me get you up closer. It's an induction stove, so unless it's not going to burn anything unless it's metal or aluminum. I mean, unless it's stainless steel or so you can see it. Let's see if that will help. There we go. And I'm just going to start adding my cocoa in little by little. Main thing is you just want that butter melted. And I don't really have the water filled up to where it's touching the glass. Woohoo, it's hot. The water is boiling, so I'm always afraid these glasses are going to shatter. I've had them for, whew, man, since the 80s. When I was in college, getting my teaching license, when I first started back in the 80s, I had to take a speech class, and I gave a cooking presentation of all things. I gave a cooking presentation, and it was on a cheesecake, my own recipe for a cheesecake. And so I bought these bowls back then, and I think that was like in 87. So these bowls are quite, we've had them for a while. So I'm always kind of afraid they're gonna crack on me because they are. All right, so let me go ahead and put the rest of it in here because we are getting to that point. And it's hard to touch because it is kind of hot. The steam is coming out. And you know, this is basically what I want right here. Now, I know that there's an easier way to do this, but in all the years that I have made brownies, and out of all the recipes I have come up with and all the recipes I've tried, whether they be my own recipes or whether they be someone else's, out of all of those things, I have found that by cooking it on the stovetop like this, getting the sugar and all of it melted together and doing it this way, this truly for us, or for me, makes the most fudgiest brownies. I mean, you actually get that fudgy, crackly top, and they just taste so fudgy, and they're really, really, really good. So, and my family just, I mean, man, my husband loves them. I think he could eat a whole thing by himself. Okay, so we're still doing good. It's not really hot, and you don't really want it hot for the simple fact you're fixing to put eggs in it. So you want to make sure that it's not so hot that it'll, you know, cook your eggs. So, all right, so there we go. Now we're going to move to the big red station where we're going to blend this all together. All right, so let me get you moved over there, and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are again. We're getting ready to put this warm mixture into the mixer. We're going to add our flour and our eggs. Now, what you're going to need is 2 eggs. There you go, 2 eggs right here. Now, I use cake flour right here. I use cake flour. And you're gonna need a 1/2 cup of cake flour and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and I've already put my salt with my flour. Now, why cake flour as opposed to all-purpose flour? You can use all-purpose flour if you like, because most people, that's their staple. They go to the all-purpose flour, and you can use that if you'd like. I prefer, ooh, hot, 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 hot. I prefer the cake flour. For one, it's not as heavy as the all-purpose flour. And what I mean by not as heavy as the all-purpose flour, it's got about 8% protein, as to where your all-purpose flour is going to be much higher in the protein. So it's going to make for a less fluffier, light, it's just going to make for a heavier bread, I guess, because, you know, all-purpose flours, you know, used in breads and regular baking. But the cake flour is, so much lighter and fluffier. And because of the heavy fudge, I want that light, airy texture that you get with using the cake flour. And it's just not so heavy, and it doesn't feel so heavy when it's ready. So let's go ahead and put this down and let's start putting it together. Okay, so right here I have the I'll turn it right here so I can get this in my range. And the only thing bad about this KitchenAid is that it's a heavy little sucker. Now, oops, sorry, I keep dropping my thing. The cake flour, I use it a lot. I usually have cake flour on hand, so it's a common staple for me. And most people don't have cake flour, and that's fine. You don't have to use cake flour, because guess what? All-purpose flour works just as well and just as delicious. So it's mainly texture that that it affects, but it will work just as well as you know, either or. I used to make pasta with cake flour. It makes the best pasta. Oh, I love cake flour because it makes the greatest pasta. And so I used to have it on hand all the time because I used to make pasta regularly. All right, so I'm gonna turn this on and let it just kind of mix up there. And make sure that it's warm. I mean, that it's not hot, when you put the eggs in, because you don't want it to cook the eggs. And that should be okay. So I'm gonna just slowly turn that up one more. Just gonna slowly add my eggs. And you can add a liquid if you want a milk, or you know, if it seems like it's too dry for you, you can add oil. You can add milk or something like that, but I don't. This is sort of an original recipe. I mean, I found it years and years ago, and I've just modified it over the years. And it's gonna get really, really thick. It does, it gets really, really thick. So you know, you wanna beat it till it starts pulling away from the beater. You can beat it by hand if you want. I just don't have the strength to beat it vigorously, so I use Big Red for that, because that's what he's for. And look at that beautifulness right here. Going to go ahead and scrape the side of my bowls. And all right, I'm going to give it one more mix. See how that just it's just falls off. That's what you want. Let me go ahead and put this down one more time. Give it a good stir. One more good mix. And now let's go put these babies in the silicones. So let me just look at this. Can you see how just nice and delicious that looks? Oops. Perfect, right there. Just what I'm looking for. And it's okay if it's kind of gritty, because that grittiness will go away with the steam. So when we put it in the Instapot, that grittiness will go away. And if you don't believe me, then you can just go ahead and add a little bit of liquid to it, a little bit of oil, or, you know, maybe a quarter cup of oil or a cup of milk or water, whichever you want. But this is the way that I do it, and they come out awesome. I've had people tell me, you should sell these, you should sell these. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and put them in the silicone. Okay, so we've got it all mixed up, and it's super thick, as you can tell right there. And we're ready for the silicone pans. So what we want to do is make sure that we spray these babies, and because we don't want the brownies sticking. And I'm gonna do one at a time. And let's go ahead and spoon in our mixture. It's kind of thick, so I'm not going to use a cake pan this time. I'm just going to use the cookie dough scooper. And it's not gonna get it all out because it is super thick, so I will probably eventually end up using a spoon once this gets too thick, too thickly in there. And you just, and it's okay if some gets on this side. See, it's starting to get to where it doesn't want to come out now. You know, as long as your hands are clean and you're not licking your fingers, it should be okay. But if you lick your fingers, you want to make sure that you wash your hands immediately, especially if you're cooking for somebody else. You know, there's nothing worse than sharing. I mean, I don't want to say nothing worse, but, you know, I think that's the extra love that we can do without is licking our fingers and then not washing our hands. So I even do it when I'm just cooking for the family. I try to make sure that if I lick my fingers, which I try not to, if I'm going to do a taste test, I try to use a spoon, which is safe for everybody. Just go ahead and, like I said, I guess working in the restaurants all those years, it just, some habits are just hard to break. See how thick it is? It's just so thick. Look at that. But that is some thick deliciousness, let me tell you. Some good stuff right there. And we're not going to fill it all the way because they will rise a little bit. And you just, I want them to be able to cook as well. So just, all right, so let me go ahead and get them all nice and even by knocking out some of the air bubbles as well, making them nice and flat, giving them some room. And, you know, doing this kind of lets me know if I need to add some somewhere or if they're all okay. So that's about what you want right there. Gives them room to rise a little bit and then enough room to pull them off. Now, we're going to do something a little different than what we did with the cheesecake. We're going to take our foil and we are going to spray the top right here because we don't want them sticking. So we're going to spray that right there. And we are going to make sure that it is completely wrapped. You don't want any moisture in there whatsoever. And so now the way I was wrapping it, the bowls, the silicone started going down. You don't want that either. You want to make sure that it's nice and flat. So just keep that in mind as well. Now in the Instapot, in the big boy, I have about almost 2 cups of water. So I've already poured that in there. I'm going to put this right there on this sling right here. And let's work on the second one. Now, if you don't have an Instapot and you want to try this recipe, by all means, bake it at 375 for 25 minutes, and it's good. It's just as good if you bake it if you don't have an Instapot. This is a fabulous recipe. I really believe that once you try it, you will enjoy this recipe. You will love, you and your family will love this recipe. It really is a delicious recipe. I like to make a brownie. My husband loves brownies. And so usually on Valentine's Day or for his birthday or something, I used to make brownies and then serve it with ice cream, his favorite ice cream on top. Ooh, that was all it took to make him happy. That was the best present. So that's love when it comes from the kitchen, and that's all he had to do was make something from the kitchen. So this, so I might have a little bit left over, which is fine. If I do, I'm just gonna stick it in ramekins, and I may bake it, or depending. I guess I should invest in 3 of these thingies. I don't know what to call them. I think Instapot calls them egg silicone. They're just, I don't even know what I'm going to title this video, because I just don't know what to call these things. But I know that I really enjoy cooking with them, because there's so much that you can do with them. They're so versatile. You can, you know, my next thing is I'm going to attempt to make, I'm working on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, but I want to make some type of muffin, because I just think that these would make great muffins. Don't they look like they would make perfect muffins? But I've got to play around with some recipes. I like creating my own recipes. I mean, I'll read it. I'll use a recipe if I have to, but I just have a thing about creating my own recipes. So I'm bad. I'm not trying to be. But, and there are some good now. Don't get me wrong. I've used my fair share of recipes. I'm not above using somebody's recipe. I will use the recipe, no doubt. And there are some that I have used, but for the most part, I started cooking when I was 7 years old, and I've just, with my grandma, and I've just been one to, you know, put things together in my mind the way that I just think the flavors should taste or go. So, oh, looky there. I am not gonna have to use, I had just enough, so to say. And I will, in case you don't remember, I will go ahead and make sure that I put the measurements in the, in the little description box there too, so that way you can, you know, have access to print them out, because it's fairly easy. Just all right, so there we go. It took most of it. All right, so we're going to do the same thing with these. Now, we will cook these a lot longer than we did the egg bites. I mean, the cheese, well, the egg bites and the cream cheesecake bites, because this is almost like a cake, so to speak. And usually when you make a cake in the Instapot, it's about 45 minutes. But I will probably end up cooking these at about 30 minutes, just to make sure that they're now these are a little bit more full. One or two are, and one's not so full, but there you go. And we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. We're gonna spray it with some tin foil right here. I mean, spray the tin foil with some Pam, and then we're going to make sure that and remember to keep the bowl straight. You don't want it like, because you want to keep it as straight as you can. And there you go. We've got it in the sling just like that. And make sure that it's closed. we're going to stick it in there. Remember, I've got almost two cups of water. Now, if I was in the Little Mama, if I was using the 6 pot, the 6 quart, I would use a cup and a half of water. But because I'm using the 8-inch, it's not quite 2 cups of water. It's more than a half, 1.5 cups, but not quite 2 cups of water. So now we're gonna take off the lid and we're gonna make sure that our rings set. Make sure you have your black knob and that it's set to sealing and not venting. Make sure that there's nothing to obstruct the pressure. Everything looks good. And because I'm cooking a dessert, I'm gonna use my dessert seal. So I don't have to worry about other flavors getting involved. I'm going to set my pressure cooker on and I'm going to turn it to 30 minutes. It was on 8 minutes because we did the cheesecake things, but I'm going to turn it on to 30 minutes. And we'll take a look then when they are done. Look at our brownies. We got our fudge brownies that came out. So let's put this down just for a second and we're just going to take a look at some good stuff right here. Now, when you get these, I had pulled them out. And they've been on the counter for almost an hour now. I've let them rest and kind of firm up. And so they've been on the counter for probably about an hour. Now what you want to do is you want to push them kind of, ooh, or not. That one's still kind of, and then just take it out. And looky there. Stick that right there. And then you just kind of pop them out. And if you need a little help, if they're still kind of stuck in there, you can use a spoon or something, but they should just pop out. Now they will be a little greasy because you did spray the pan and you did have butter. There is butter in them, so they might be, you know, just a little bit greasy, but just let them sit on the, you know, counter a little bit longer and they'll even firm up a little bit more. And they are very, very, very rich, very rich. If you don't like them as rich, you can use a little less cocoa, probably a half a cup or a little bit more than a fourth a cup if you don't really like the rich flavor. But looky there. Oh my gosh, you can tell how rich they are. Now, remember that this has more cocoa than it has anything in there. It has more cocoa than sugar. Well, almost as sugar. It's got the most sugar, but they are going to be very cocoa. And they are going to be very rich in chocolate. They are going to be very, very fudgy. I mean, it's not like a regular brownie. They are going to be very, very fudgy. Look at that. I mean, just